So this is part 3 of a series on challenges that may be keeping you or the average American from reaching $10,000 in savings. As a reminder, 57% of Americans, per a survey done by YouGov, have less than 10K saved up. Some things that I discussed in video 1 are about needing more basic financial knowledge, or the issue of just planning for today, and in video 2, some issues that involve having bad general habits or being negatively influenced, hating frugality, or just simply being too idealistic. Now for this video, I'll be going over just a few more of these potential challenges. Relationships. This one is not about dating, but more so on your friends and your family, because in our culture, or pretty much any culture that I'm aware of, we're all taught to cherish our friends and family and to love them. For parents, they raised you and they took care of you. For siblings, well, they're your brother or your sister. Friends, true friends are hard to come by, etc. And some of us are very fortunate where everyone around us are doing superb and doing very well, and everything runs extremely smoothly. And some of us are not as fortunate, where friends and family might always be wanting gifts or loans to help them pay their bills because they're facing eviction or homelessness. Now, I've had friends in these situations where friends and family, they just don't have their lives together. And instead of making sure that they have enough for rent at the end of each month, they're going out to concerts, maybe they're eating out all the time, they're shopping, they're buying new cars, all sorts of things. Then in the end, they ask their best friend, their sons or daughters, for a few $1,000s so that they can cover their rent. Then you tell them that it's just this once and they say, yeah, definitely. But then the next month comes and it's the same thing, it's the same story. And they tug at your heartstrings because they raised you. Maybe they are your son and daughter, they're your best friend, and maybe they covered you that one time in school or all sorts of things. Then this goes on for months, for years, until you're in debt too. So their problems ultimately become your problems if you let it be. It's a very, very strong pull and influence, and I know that for a fact because even some of the comments I get about when someone says they're frugal, that they still take care of their family and friends and they cherish them. But if you watched one of my previous videos about how if you don't plan for the future and you don't plan for the long term, sometimes just because you're able to save now, you're going to be more likely to be more generous. And maybe you're more likely to hand over thousands of dollars to your friend or family who needs it to cover their monthly expenses. But if there's a case in the end where you're just not able to save that much anymore, who's going to be there to bail you out? Because in this case, it's likely not going to be them. Because we all know that habits are extremely hard to change. And if it's a long trend of poor habits, then they're most likely going to continue being that way. So the issue becomes not whether you're heartless and how could you, it really boils down to can you actually afford it? Afford getting evicted and going homeless yourself to help others. So if you can afford $500 a month or something like that and it works out in your long-term plan, then I think you have a much stronger case for continuing to help if you choose to and if you want to. But if you can't even afford $500 a month, then you're probably better off thinking alternative solutions where everything works out. And if in the end nothing works and they just need money from you, it's ultimately your decision, but likely it's going to be better for you to take care of yourself first. Just like they say with the oxygen mask on an airplane. This one is about dating. My channel is relatively new, but it's old enough that I have enough analytics and data that I can tell that most of my viewers are men. Now this is not a dating channel, by the way, for any new viewers. This is actually a finance channel. And for my women viewers, hopefully this is just an interesting tidbit, if not something more insightful. But somewhat routinely, I'll get the comments about how you need money to get a hot, beautiful girlfriend or wife. And if you're frugal, then you'll never be able to date, or if you do, then she won't be a prize. Comments along those lines. And if you're a guy, then you probably have an understanding that dating is really important. And this probably applies to women too. But for men, there's an incentive to be considered good with women, and every guy's worst nightmare include being the legendary 40-year-old virgin. So I've dated a lot in my younger years. others. And a few things I've learned include that there's not just one perfect soulmate for you, there's actually many people that you'd probably like enough to live the rest of your life with. That not all women need you to splurge and pay for everything, and not all women just require a rich man. Instead, I would say it's about your entire profile, because take it like a package. People date who they match with best and who they're most compatible with. For example, one of the things I hear about are that if you're a very good person, that you should be able to date whoever you want and they would love you. I think it's more about compatibility. For example, if you're extremely good and the person that you're dating is evil, you're probably going to be clashing a lot, and I don't mean that in the bedroom. So if you desire to date someone who likes to spend money, then you'll likely have to spend a lot regardless of how physically attractive they are. But if you want to date someone beautiful who is also frugal, then you can probably be frugal and get along very well as well. And yes, certain things in our society are universally seen as good and attractive things as a man. So being tall, being physically fit, having good looks, being rich, having a lot of power, being talented, or just in general a lot of achievements and etc. So I'm not saying these things don't matter, but if you're weak in a few, then be strong in others. But if you have it in your head that in order to date someone that you really, really like, that you have to spend a lot of money, then chances are that you're probably going to be spending a lot more than you would have otherwise, because that is the psychological concept of anchoring. And it's something that people like to use in negotiations, where if whoever starts out, they like to mention a number that they kind of want to land near. So if I'm trying to sell you something, I might start with a higher number and expect the discussion to start there, and then wait for it to be negotiated downwards. So there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings going around, and if it's something I mentioned in my very first video in this series. If you're basing off a lot of your information on social media or on Q&A forums, a lot of people don't really know what they're talking about, and they're just speaking about based off gut feelings, or they haven't thought about it much. So if you have any misunderstandings or misconceptions, it's much better to clear those up and know for sure, which you probably get that through experience or trial and error. But the point I'd like to make here is that a lot of it's about compatibility. In fact, there's even the matching principle, where people are more likely to date someone else that are equal to them in looks or status. But then it also goes on to say, if there are successful couples that have a huge discrepancy in physical attractiveness, then those things can be offset by other things. One of the main examples it used is wealth. So as a final note for this section, if your goals is to build financial wealth and be financially successful, it's probably in your best interest to find someone who shares the same thoughts and goals as you. Because if you decide to partner up with someone who just doesn't have the same goals as you, it's going to have a lot of friction, a lot of difficulties. So my suggestion here is really just understand that you don't need to be rich, but generally speaking, you do want to be seen as more attractive in many other ways. For example, having good and valued qualities. For example, if you're a rich but let's say very physically unattractive and a hateful person, many more women are probably going to date the person who is also rich but is considered very attractive and has good qualities, versus the person who is rich and is unattractive and has bad qualities. And with that being said, that is about all I have for this video. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and make sure to leave me any comments about what you thought about this video.